Tonight, breaking news.
Iran retaliates, firing missiles at U.S. forces in Iraq. From the Middle East, Washington and Ottawa, the response, the stakes, and what could happen next.
Also tonight, we're on the front lines of the battle against Australian wildfires.
Overcapacity at Ottawa morgues. Healthcare workers say hospitals had to resort to storing dead bodies in conference rooms.
And a royal thank you. Harry and Meghan's message to Canada. This is The National. We begin tonight with breaking news. There are reports tonight that a Ukrainian airliner with at least 170 people on board crashed near Tehran right after takeoff. Now, those reports suggest it was a Boeing 737, and early indications from Iran state TV say it was likely brought down by mechanical issues, but they didn't explain that point any further.
And this is happening with all eyes on Iran tonight. Tehran has retaliated for the U.S. killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. We know missiles rained down on at least 2 locations, bases in Iraq that host U.S. and coalition troops. So these images aired on Iranian state TV. They appear to show missiles being fired into the night sky. One target, Ain al-Assad base, that's in a sprawling rural area west of Baghdad. Another, Erbil in northern Iraq, also home to a base used by coalition forces, including Canadians. The full extent of the damage is still unclear, but the latest report suggests there are few, if any, casualties. What is clear? Iran is openly claiming responsibility. That puts Washington and Tehran in a dangerous standoff. We have full coverage tonight with Susan Ormiston in Washington tracking the U.S. response, Vashi Kapelos in Ottawa on Canada's reaction and what we're hearing about those Canadian troops. But let's begin in the region. Margaret Evans is in Beirut, where this explosion of violence was dreaded and widely expected. So, Margaret, what do we know about tonight's attacks?
Adrian, Tehran has been threatening to retaliate against the United States for Qasem Soleimani's assassination, and to do so directly without relying on militia proxies like Hezbollah, for example, here in Lebanon. And tonight it seems that that is indeed what we're seeing. The grainy proof, or so it would seem, of what Iranian state television is dubbing Operation Martyr Soleimani. A series of surface-to-surface missiles hit an Iraqi base in Anbar province called Ain al-Assad, housing U.S. and other coalition troops. Another wave of missiles is said to have targeted the Kurdish capital of Erbil in northern Iraq, which also hosts a coalition base. Most of the Middle East has been bracing itself for just such an escalation in the wake of Qasem Soleimani's assassination last week. Tonight's missile barrage began just hours after the former Iranian general and spy master was buried in his hometown. Dozens of mourners were trampled to death when a stampede broke out in the huge crowds following the funeral procession. Also today, Iranian legislators passed a law labeling the U.S. Army and the Pentagon terrorist entities. And the country's foreign minister, Javad Zarif, repeated pledges to avenge Soleimani's death.
That's an act of war done in a cowardly terrorist operation, and Iran will take appropriate response to that.
Here in Beirut, in Hezbollah neighborhoods, giant billboards bearing Soleimani's image line the streets, a reminder of how far his reach extended and of the sectarian nature of the Middle East. The main question tonight, of course, is whether or not these strikes represent a definitive act of retaliation from Iran or just the start of it. Adrian.
All right, thanks, Margaret. Margaret Evans in Beirut tonight. So another key question is how Washington will respond. Susan Ormiston is there. And Susan, there has to be a flurry of activity still at this hour at the White House.
You bet. The lights are on at the White House. Security has been tightened around the building. The national advisors to the president have been huddling with him for hours. The Secretary of State and Defense and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We've heard only one thing from President Trump tonight. Not surprisingly, a tweet. The president said, with a surprising tone perhaps, all is well, double exclamation, so far so good, and added that he will be making a statement to the country tomorrow. The Pentagon is assessing battle damage, and the main question, of course, Adrian, is what will the U.S. do next? The president has repeatedly said if attacked, it will respond forcefully. He said it again today. Here's how the day played out.
The United States is not seeking a war with Iran, but we are prepared to finish one.
The U.S. Defense Secretary earlier today clearly preparing Americans for what was to come.
We should expect that they will retaliate in some way, shape, or form. We're prepared for any contingency.
Team Trump was on deep defense today with top leaders, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, Defense Secretary Mark Esper, and the president, all doubling down on the justification for killing Soleimani.
He's been called a monster. And he was a monster. And he's no longer a monster. He's dead.
But in death, Qasem Soleimani has remained a threat, a martyr in the eyes of his followers. In fact, tonight's operation was named Martyr Soleimani. U.S. allies, Canada included, are moving some troops out of Iraq. In a letter, Chief of Defense Staff General Vance said to ensure their safety and security. U.S. forces were already on high alert, but the government again denied today its troops would withdraw from Iraq. This retired military colonel says they should.
We are literally sitting in the desert defending ourselves like a turtle. That's the only thing we're doing. And by all rights, we should leave instead of just being targets.
Just over a year ago, President Trump made a surprise visit to the same Iraqi air base hit tonight during the December break. He has not publicly responded to tonight's attack, but earlier today repeated his warning to Iran.
If Iran does anything that they shouldn't be doing, they're going to be suffering the consequences, and very strongly.
Now, Adrian, one of the red lines for this president is dead or injured Americans. And there's no indication yet tonight that there have been American casualties, although Iraqis may have suffered some casualties on those bases. From Iran tonight, the foreign minister has tweeted that Iran does not seek escalation or a war, but will defend itself if it is attacked. An advisor to the Iranian president was harsher. He said that any adverse military attack by the U.S. will be met with an all-out war across the region. So we're all waiting tonight and into the wee hours of this morning to see what the U.S. will do next.
All right, Susan, thanks very much. Susan Ormiston in Washington. So now let's look at what this means for Canada. Power and Politics host Vashi Kapelos is with us. Vashi, we've heard from Canada's Chief of Defense Staff, Jonathan Vance. What is the official word on Canadian troops in the region?
The official word, thank goodness, Adrian, is that they are all accounted for and they are all safe. We found that out not long ago vis-a-vis a tweet from General Jonathan Vance. I just want to back up for a second before pulling up that tweet, though, and show you that General Vance, along with Minister Harjit Sajjan, was meeting at the Department of National Defense at the building I believe that you're looking at right now. Throughout the evening, the meeting wrapped not long ago, and it wrapped because General Vance came out with this tweet announcing the status of those about 500, up to 500 Canadian troops in Iraq. He said, CAF, Canadian Armed Forces families, I can assure you that all deployed CAF personnel are safe and accounted for following missile attacks in Iraq. We remain vigilant. Some of those troops had been moved out earlier today from Iraq to Kuwait, though we're not sure how many remained on the base in Erbil or around the base. That is, of course, one of the bases that was attacked by Iran earlier this evening.
So, Vashi, are we hearing anything else, perhaps from the Prime Minister tonight?
Nothing since the announcement that Canadian troops are safe, but we did hear from the Prime Minister a little earlier. A spokesperson for him told us that the Prime Minister has been informed of the situation and that we are monitoring it closely. There will be, I think it's fair to say, some tough questions for the Prime Minister tomorrow. I think a lot of Canadians, or at least the opposition parties, are demanding that he speak directly to Canadians about this. I think there will also be a lot of questions, not just for him, but for the military, about what they plan to do with the rest of the troops stationed, the Canadian troops stationed in Iraq. Will they be moving out to Kuwait, or will they be leaving the country? Is it just too unsafe for them right now, given the current tense situation?
All right, much more ahead on this breaking story tonight, including our panel of experts standing by to help make some sense of what this means and, crucially, what comes next. But first, here's Ian now with more on that other big breaking story that is the plane crash outside of Tehran. Ian.
And Adrian, it is 10:10 Pacific time right now, 10:40 Wednesday morning in Iran, and the worst possible news on the crash. The president of Ukraine says everyone aboard a Ukrainian Airlines jet has been killed. That plane crashed shortly after takeoff from Tehran, and this happened about 5.5 hours ago. Let's take a look at what local television says of the final moments of the flight. You'll see a small flash, perhaps an explosion on board, and then that much bigger flash, likely the moment it slammed into the ground. And pictures of the crash scene show the sudden and catastrophic impact. The jet filled with fuel when it hit. It appears this was a Ukrainian Airlines 737-800. Now, that's not the MAX, the model which has been grounded for almost a year. The 737-800, a very popular plane used around the world. The question of cause is always top of mind in the hours after a crash. And of course, this comes the same day as Iran fired those missiles at a U.S. base. Iranian state television apparently said it believed the cause was mechanical, but did not explain what that suggestion was based on. We do know everyone on board, more than 160 people were killed. The plane was headed to Kiev. We don't know what countries the passengers were from or where beyond Ukraine they may have been headed. Ukrainian crash investigators are headed to the scene. But there are questions at this hour whether U.S. investigators, who would normally investigate the crash of a U.S.-built plane, will be allowed into Iran in this case, given all that is going on. We'll watch for more information, but for now, back to Andrew in Toronto.
Okay, for the moment, let's turn to other news. Beginning in Australia, where cooler weather has given firefighters some relief, but not nearly enough to tame wildfires ripping through much of the country. Take a look. This was the scene in New South Wales today. That's the state hit hardest in the country's southeast, with more than 5 million hectares burned. But also consider this. Police have taken legal action against 124 people for deliberately setting fires, tossing lit cigarettes, and ignoring fire bans. David Common is in New South Wales, on the front lines of the firefight in Illaroo. That's about 2.5 hours south of Sydney.
It may not look like it, but this forest is still on fire, days after a towering inferno moved up this hill. The flames trapped inside these logs, the embers burning inside standing trees, and the extreme heat still rising from the ground. It could flare up and cause the next big one.
This is all about trying to shut down the possibility of another inferno passing through this region. It's already done that, and so many of these areas are very hot. By hosing them down now, when the weather heats up once again, the heat wave returns, they're not going to cause an ignition. That's the hope anyway.
I think this is all private road.
For most firefighters, this is the most catastrophic fire of their careers. Some fighting blazes that have been burning since September. And it's about to get worse. Another heat wave is coming Friday. This is dangerous work, and it's been deadly. So it's surprising to learn who these firefighters are.
All of them volunteer?
Every single one volunteers.
It's amazing.
It is. About 72,000 volunteers in New South Wales for our service. The largest voluntary fire service in the world.
On this crew, 3 teachers and an Uber driver.
You're a volunteer?
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
What do you do the rest of the time?
I'm an arborist.
You're an arborist?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're used to dealing with trees.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I'm usually up there climbing around in them, actually.
The fireys, as they're called in Australia, have something of a hero status. So too, it would seem, do the latest arrivals of Canadian fire specialists. Applauded arriving off a round-the-world flight. joining teams of experts across the fire zone, some doing behind-the-scenes work, others on the front lines.
They're looking at the weather and the fuels and the topography and putting it all together and telling us where the fire is going to go tomorrow.
There is no time to ease into the job for the Canadians or anyone else. This is a crisis, and one that seems certain to last for months to come. David Coleman, CBC News, Uluru, Australia.
Dozens of firefighters took a break from the front lines today to honor a fallen colleague. Andrew Dwyer was one of 2 volunteer firefighters killed last month when a burnt tree fell and caused their truck to roll. The 36-year-old leaves behind his daughter, Charlotte. She was presented with her father's service medal, then put on his helmet and stayed near his coffin. Dwyer was described as a free spirit who loved his family and his fire brigade.
Hundreds of thousands of people are without power in disaster-weary Puerto Rico tonight after another powerful earthquake struck just this morning, killing at least 1 person. The 6.4 magnitude quake struck before dawn just off the southern coast. That's not far from where a 5.8 magnitude shock hit on Monday. Stephen D'Souza looks at how people on this battered island are holding up.
Buildings collapsed, hospitals evacuated, homes in ruins. Puerto Ricans fled outside after the latest in a series of earthquakes shook them out of bed early this morning. Horrible, everything fell on top of us. Getting to the street was an odyssey because everything had fallen on the road, this woman says. This broadcast was on the air. The quakes are the latest setback for an island still recovering from the deadly 2017 hurricane, with billions of dollars of repairs still needed. In Guayanillas, residents salvaged what they could from this historic church, which had stood since 1841. Monday's quake also destroyed this natural rock formation and popular tourist attraction. With cars crushed and power outages across the island, Puerto Rican Governor Wanda Vazquez declared a state of emergency and activated the National Guard. Puerto Rico sits near a major undersea fault line that has caused multiple tremors since December 28th. The constant rumbling has kept residents on edge. I was sleeping when the house began falling down bit by bit. I grabbed my bag, which I had prepared, and ran outside and jumped off the balcony, this man says. In the southeast, seismologists say there's been more than 800 seismic events in the past 2 weeks, unheard of since they started keeping records in the mid-'80s.
I would hope that this was the last large event, but it's not guaranteed.
She says it's difficult to predict if the quakes will continue.
So there is activity constantly in Puerto Rico. It just happens that this activity is close to land and is shallow, and therefore is impacting the public more.
As the aftershocks continue, some are forced to remain outside, unsure when it will be safe to go back in. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
Now to Ottawa, where hospital overcrowding has taken a truly grim twist. The morgues are full at 2 hospital facilities, and some workers have complained they're now finding bodies in some surprising places. Hilary Johnstone looked into it.
Cadavers are normally kept in morgues like this one in Montreal, but a hospital workers union in Ottawa says overcrowding there has led to unorthodox solutions and creepy situations.
A lot of the housekeepers go up to the floors and they go into the conference rooms, and they're caught off guard when they walk in and there's a body that's been covered up.
In early December, workers at 2 hospital facilities started complaining to the union, telling Lou Burry the morgues were full.
Beginning of December, it was pretty cold in Ottawa, so they would leave the doors open to keep the room refrigerated. Makeshift refrigeration, if you like.
Burry was also told of bodies kept in patient rooms and parts of the ER.
I couldn't understand why this was happening. I don't understand why it is happening.
The Ottawa Hospital has not directly addressed that why. It did say when capacity at these morgues is reached, it may be necessary for the deceased to be taken care of in temporary spaces that respect the requirements for dignity and procedure. The hospital said conference rooms and ward beds are not used to store cadavers. When CBC News asked for clarification, have conference rooms ever been used, the hospital declined to comment further. This funeral home manager says he's not surprised that Ottawa's morgues are full.
The hospital cells were never built to hold a lot of bodies.
He says it's a problem across the country. Last September, Alberta launched an investigation after photos emerged of bodies being stored in refrigerated trailers rented by the coroner's office.
We worry a little bit about what's being done and how the bodies are being cared for.
Backlogs get even worse when there's no next of kin to claim a body.
Because somebody has to take possession of a body. You can't move a body unless you have authority.
Ontario's health ministry says hospitals are responsible for day-to-day management of their facilities, and it's confident the Ottawa Hospital will address overcrowding at the morgues. Hilary Johnstone, CBC News, Ottawa.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, but we have much more on the news breaking late this evening.
Iran has retaliated for the U.S.-sponsored killing of Qasem Soleimani, striking 2 military bases that host U.S. and coalition forces inside Iraq with ballistic missiles. So here's the video we have so far. We are tracking the latest, working our sources in this country and around the world. We will try to help you make sense of what this means and what comes next with our panel of regional experts just ahead. We're back in 2. Breaking tonight, Iran is retaliating for the killing of Qasem Soleimani. The country's forces have fired more than a dozen missiles targeting at least 2 military bases in Iraq that host U.S. and coalition military personnel. Donald Trump tweeted that the U.S. was assessing damage and casualties, but said, quote, "So far so good." And Canadian Chief of Defense Staff Jonathan Vance says all deployed Canadian Armed Forces personnel are safe and accounted for. We will continue to bring you the latest details of this story as we have them. Harry and Meghan pulled off something of a Christmas coup with their almost secret Canadian vacation. Well, today, a tip of the hat to their co-conspirators. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have returned to royal duty since returning home from BC. And as Renee Filipponi reports, they are more than grateful for that quality downtime.
A last-minute visit to say, thanks, Canada, after spending the holidays holed up on BC's west coast in a quest for privacy. It seems Canada delivered.
The warmth and hospitality that we were showing all of that was unbelievable, and that's exactly why we chose Canada.
Today they were served up a quintessential Canadian treat, Nanaimo bars, and took in a new exhibit by Mohawk artist Skawanati, the first here by an Indigenous woman. This is the second time in under a year the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have visited Canada House in London.
I think there's a special place in their hearts for Canada. Canada is very proud of our connection with the royal family.
This Instagram post of Harry and Archie is the only photographic evidence the family were in BC. Reports are they stayed in a mansion on Vancouver Island.
We really don't know much about what they've done for this sabbatical, and that was exactly how they intended it to be. An opportunity to escape the spotlight, to sort of get away after quite a challenging year for the Sussexes.
Not many people have asked if I'm okay, but it's a very real thing to be going through behind the scenes.
On a recent trip to Africa, the couple discussed the struggles that being in the spotlight puts on their family, only to be met with criticism, especially in the UK media.
Perhaps they just realised they also needed some time to take a step back, to reflect, to reassess, and I think they come into 2020. Certainly to me today, they looked full of enthusiasm, they looked revitalised, they looked happy.
It's not protocol for royals to make a visit like this and thank a country that wasn't officially hosting them. Royal watchers now wonder if there's an official visit to Canada coming this year. The High Commissioner would only say royals are always welcome. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
And we do have more on the breaking news from the Middle East up next on The National. Iran's ballistic missile attack tonight on U.S.-led forces in Iraq, a retaliation to the U.S. killing of an Iranian commander.
So are they on the brink of war? What happens next? We've gathered a panel of top regional experts, and we're back in 2 minutes.
Welcome back to the Pacific edition of The National. Here in the Vancouver newsroom, we have some new information on the plane crash in Tehran, which killed everyone on board. The jet, we know, was headed to Kiev, and the Prime Minister of Ukraine saying this hour there were 167 passengers and 9 crew aboard. Let's start with this video reportedly showing the last few moments of the flight. You see that flash, but then a much larger flash, likely the explosion when the jet hit the ground. And then pictures and video from the crash site make it clear the impact was catastrophic. This was a Ukrainian Airlines 737-800. Now, we should point out that is not the 737 MAX, the plane which has been grounded, but the 800 series, a very popular jet which is used by airlines around the world. We don't know what the likely cause of this crash was. Iranian State Television reportedly was quick to say it was a mechanical problem, but they gave no indication what that was based on. And of course, given the other news events of the day, that missile strike in particular, many people wondering if that at all could have been related. We have no idea. We also don't know what countries the passengers were from or where they may have been headed.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Back to our top story tonight. Iranian missile strikes on U.S. and coalition targets in Iraq. That is retaliation for the U.S. killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. More than a dozen Iranian missiles launched from Iran targeted at least 2 locations in Iraq, including the Al-Assad air base housing U.S. troops and Iraqi troops, and Erbil, where some Canadian personnel are also stationed. Tonight, U.S. officials saying there are very few, if any, casualties, but no matter what, this is an extremely dangerous escalation of tensions between these 2 longtime enemies with potentially global consequences, which is why we need to talk. So joining me now are experts, Janice Stein from the Munk School of Global Affairs, Besma Momani from the University of Waterloo's Center for International Governance and Innovation, and in Detroit tonight, Saeed Khan of Wayne State University. So Besma, if we can start with you, I'm not sure people are surprised that there's been a retaliation. We've been talking about it for days, but in your estimation, what determines whether this ends or escalates right now?
So I think what we're going to see moving forward is actually de-escalation, which is fantastic news for everybody. The fact of the matter is it seems as though there was no U.S. service personnel killed on these bases, which is really important. I think that allows Trump to save face. The fact that there's no address tonight, it seemed as though also reports of Esper and Pompeo, that's the Secretary of Defense and State, who visited Trump in the White House, have now gone basically back to where they came from. And so I think things are now going to cool down, but it was a very busy night, and I think many of us were on the edge of our seats wondering if this was going to be a war.
Okay, so I think the world wants your take to be the right one. Janice, anything tonight surprise you at all?
No, I actually think the Iranians launched a very disciplined, limited, it's hard to believe that when you see the missiles flying, Adrian, but limited strike, 12 to 30 missiles on 2 bases, along with the most extraordinary message that came out tonight on Iranian Telegraph, which said, we're going to launch this wave and possibly one other, and that will be it if you do nothing, if you don't respond. If you do respond, Haifa and Tel Aviv will burn. I cannot remember somebody launching a strike and saying to the adversary, this will be it if you don't respond. That is a very strong message. The Iranians do not want to take this to all-out war.
The messaging was also interesting, I found, because throughout the night, Iranian state news agencies were systematically sending out messages clearly for domestic consumption.
Absolutely.
Laying claim to this. They really want this to be a win at home, clearly.
That's right. I mean, there was tremendous pressure on the Supreme Leader, and he went to the National Security Council meeting, and he said, look, there have to be 2 things. It has to be open. It has to be obviously from Iran, and that condition was met, and it has to be against U.S. assets. Take those 2 parameters, Adrian. What was done tonight was about at the lowest level that one could imagine.
Saeed, can you help us understand here, what do you think gave Iran to the confidence to take this chance tonight?
Well, I think there's two things to consider here, Adrian. One is the confidence which they demonstrated with the accuracy of their missiles. These were certainly on point. The other thing that I think is important to also recognize is where was the U.S. defense system that allowed for the missiles to penetrate at least the outer perimeter and be able to strike successfully. But I think another word that we need to also consider here is perhaps compulsion. Given the very massive outpouring of public grief and anger at the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, and the fact that the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was presiding over the services, over the funeral, weeping over the coffin, meant that the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Council, had to do something. Perhaps some of us were wondering whether this is a bit earlier than we thought that they would act, but they did. And as Basma and Janice so aptly pointed out, it was very, very proportionate. It was very, very disciplined. And the Iranians essentially showed what was in their sheath. In many ways, that would be seen as a rather gentlemanly way of striking back.
So, Basma, you know, I think as a Canadian, when you hear that Erbil was among the locations that was hit, you immediately think, aha, okay, we know there are Canadians at a base near there. Can you help people understand what exactly the Canadians are doing there and what changes about that mission, you know, tonight?
Yeah, so Operation Impact has 850 troops across the region. By my count, there's about 500 in Iraq. We don't know exactly where, but we do know that Erbil was one site that indeed they were visiting. And of course, I think this is a very tense time. We've seen in the past 2 days discussion and debate about where the Canadian troops are going to go. My understanding is some of them are making their way out to Kuwait at the moment. Certainly there are many allies as well. The Germans are trying to vacate to Jordan. Others are following suit. So it is not a safe time, I think, for our troops to be in the region. We knew that they were going to be in harm's way. But what this means for the operation, which was really there to help train and build the capacity of the Iraqi Federal Army, is in doubt. And that's a real shame because, in fact, the Canadians were doing a lot of good there. The Iraqi army is highly factionalized. We saw it pretty much wither into these kinds of sectarian factions back when ISIS was in town. This is not good for the Iraqi Federal Army in the long run. If Iraq is going to stand on its own 2 feet and be able to, frankly, be able to dissuade the Iranians from having their way in their country, particularly their military force and these powerful militias that have such a strong role in the military, the Canadian and the NATO forces that are there to train the Iraqi military is sorely needed, and their job is not done.
But understanding that the job is not done, but this puts some pressure on the Canadian government. Janice, what are you expecting to hear from them?
I mean, there's no question. The Chief of the Defence Staff, Jonathan Vance, talked about thinning out Canadian forces, and so I'm cautiously optimistic here, Adrian, that they're out of harm's way. But there's a larger question here. The Iranian parliament has asked that U.S. troops withdraw from Iraq. The Iraqi prime minister has supported that. Now, we're still not there. But the whole notion of having a coalition training mission in Iraq, I think, is much more politically fraught now after all this. And I think the biggest risk in all of this is not war between Iran and the United States, but it's actually civil war in Iraq if these tensions continue to build. You know, there were Iraqi casualties tonight. That's the one thing.
They get forgotten.
They get forgotten, and that's the one thing we know.
So, Saeed, very quickly, we don't have much time left in this block, but I spoke with a State Department spokesperson yesterday who said that the fight against ISIS will continue. She was very confident of that. Are you confident this is the case?
Well, there's an irony, isn't there, that it was the Iraqi militia who were trained and coordinated by Qasem Soleimani, who were doing most of the heavy lifting on the ground in Iraq in trying to repel ISIS. So the fact that on the one hand, the United States is making statements that they are going to continue unabated in the fight against ISIS, that seems a little bit strange, particularly when we saw a rather embarrassing letter from the Pentagon, erroneously sent perhaps, that the United States is already planning its withdrawal of forces from from Iraq. So we're getting mixed signals that are coming out of the White House, the Pentagon, and the State Department as to exactly what is America's future policy and its strategy when it comes to Iraq. The idea of ISIS being in place still in Iraq must be vexing for the United States. If they're planning on staying and if they're planning on having a redeployment of more troops, then the distraction of Iran and the Iraqi militia, who I'm sure they're worried about having retaliatory strikes against them, is going to be a problem if they are then looking to combat ISIS as well.
All right, everybody, we have to take a short break. Besma, I want to hear what you have to say about ISIS coming after this. So please, you three, stick around. We have a lot more to discuss. When we come back, what to watch for next in this developing story. More on our top story tonight. Iranian missile attacks on U.S. and coalition targets in Iraq launched from inside Iran. Retribution for the U.S. killing of a top Iranian general and a very dangerous escalation of tensions in an already volatile region. So here's what we know. There have been at least 2 targeted locations in Iraq. Iran's foreign minister tonight tweeting Iran, quote, took and concluded proportionate measures in self-defense, and that Iran doesn't seek escalation or war, but that they will defend themselves. So there's no word yet on casualties, although the U.S. officials tonight saying that there are very few, if any. Helping us make some sense of this, Janice Stein from the Munk School of Global Affairs, Besma Momani from the University of Waterloo's Center for International Governance and Innovation, the Middle East expert at Wayne State University, Saeed Khan. So Besma, I promised I would ask you about this. Will the fight against ISIS continue?
Yes, but I think, the fight against ISIS needs to be expanded more so than being described today. It's not so much that ISIS is active on the ground in Iraq. If we really want to fight ISIS, we need to, one, build the federal army of Iraq, make it able to stand on its own 2 feet so that it can take care of its own, create a federal army that has that national spirit that's not being swayed by pro-Iranian militia known as the PMF or the PMU. That, I think, would be, very much welcomed by many Iraqis. And also, to address the remaining conditions inside the country of refugees, lack of reconstruction and building in Mosul and other areas where ISIS once flourished. There's a lot of local grievances inside northern Iraq. And if we want to prevent ISIS 2.0, it would be wise to address that. But our goal there really is to make an Iraqi federal army able and capable to stand on its own 2 feet and be a professional military that it should be. So we've got a lot of work to do still there, and I'm afraid this has now really jeopardized that broader mission.
Okay, I have one question for each of you, just to close this out. Besma, what are your sources telling you about what we should be watching for next?
I mean, look, the one thing I was looking for was the fact of the matter of are there U.S. casualties on that base? That is a sigh of relief. Will Trump now want to sort of ratchet it up again? I don't think so. I do believe that Trump's instinct is not to go to war. I know that it's really hard for people to see and understand, but you just need to look at his base. His base has not been happy with him, believe it or not, in some respects, for, just even the ratcheting up the rhetoric and killing Soleimani. They have no interest in a war in the Middle East. But that said, Trump is very much swayed by optics, does not want to be the man that lets Benghazi happen again on his watch. That's reference to Libya's embassy being attacked and the ambassador killed there. And what happened with the Iranian-backed forces who basically stormed the Baghdad embassy was just too much for him.
Saeed, what are you watching for next?
Well, I'm looking at 2 things. I agree with Basma. I think that for Trump, the domestic political calculation is still there, and in fact probably offsets his risk aversion when it comes to being at war. But what I'm really looking for is statements coming from Moscow and Beijing. After all, Iran was conducting joint naval exercises with both Russia and China a few days ago, and they are a very important player within the Persian Gulf now, especially China with the Belt and Road Initiative, and given, of course, Vladimir Putin's relationship with Trump, it seems as though they will be able to temper the situation in Iraq and between Iran and the United States.
All right, so Janice, last word to you. Very quickly, if I'm sitting at home right now and I'm pretty anxious hearing this news, how anxious do I need to be?
You do not. You do not need to be anxious. As I've said, we are nowhere near an all-out war. It was a real break tonight, Adrian, that Trump did not speak. That was obvious to me a big step back. I hope he doesn't speak tomorrow. If he could get through 24 hours where he doesn't speak, that would make it a really excellent day, frankly. The bigger picture here, and here's a great irony, Soleimani was actually carrying messages from Iran to Saudi Arabia. It was going through the Prime Minister of Iraq. If we see signs that back channel is going again, that will be a really strong indicator that we are through this phase. So I'm keeping my eye on that. Wouldn't that be a good thing?
All right, thanks. Thank you all for coming in tonight, for sharing your insight. Janice Stein, Besma Momani, Saeed Khan, great to have you. And if you have any questions about the tensions in Iran, what it could mean for Canada, please go ahead, send us a note at thenational@cbc.ca. We will put them to our panel of experts to answer, debate, and discuss a little later this week.
I'm Jamie Poisson, and tomorrow on CBC's daily news podcast, Front Burner, understanding the politics of the wildfire crisis in Australia. Will it be a catalyst for change? Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, the day before, a Facebook official answers questions on Capitol Hill about digital deception. The company says it is banning deepfake videos. But, as Thomas Daigle tells us, there are serious concerns about how the world's biggest social media platform will police itself.
But I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business.
Sure, that's Charlie Chaplin's voice, not really Justin Trudeau's. And that's Ontario Premier Doug Ford's face on Donald Trump's body.
I hire people, they do a website, it costs me $3.
It's easy to tell that's a fake, but manipulated video that looks this real is called a deep fake.
You see, I would never say these things, at least not in a public address.
I called for a kinder, gentle...
Recording techniques and artificial intelligence are making deep fakes simpler to produce, blurring the line with what's real.
We just want to predict your future behaviors.
Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg didn't actually say that, but he did promise last year to fight deepfakes.
It is likely sensible to have a different policy and to treat this differently than how we just treat normal false information on the internet.
Now, in its new policy, Facebook is pledging to remove clips that would likely mislead someone into thinking a subject of the video said words that they did not actually say. But it won't take down deepfakes meant as satire.
That leaves a big open door for people who have created a deepfake to say, well, it was a parody, actually. I always want to see how it's actually going to be enforced.
Some other doctored clips won't be deleted either.
And then he had a press conference in the
like this widely shared video of U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, edited to make it look like she was slurring her words.
There is very damaging speech that is possible to be distributed in a very sophisticated way on these platforms. And we need to have some sort of editorial oversight.
All the more critical approaching U.S. elections, 4 years after a campaign tainted by fake news and foreign meddling.
Spectre showed me how to manipulate you into sharing
the trickery is only getting easier.
And all those you love for free.
Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
We'll have more on tonight's breaking news story from the Middle East. Iran has followed through on its threats against the United States, sending ballistic missiles into Iraq, targeting American forces. Donald Trump has now tweeted saying that the assessment of damage and casualties is taking place right now. He says he will be making a statement tomorrow morning. We have the latest developments coming up on The National. Stay with us. Let's recap tonight's breaking news. Just hours ago, Iran launched ballistic missiles against 2 military bases in Iraq, used by U.S. and coalition forces. Iran is retaliating against the United States for that drone attack last Friday that killed Qasem Soleimani, a top general and revered military figure in Iran. So let's take a look at those targets. The al-Assad base is located in a rural area west of Baghdad, and in northern Iraq, the city of Erbil is home to a base used by coalition forces, including Canadians. Now, a military source told CBC News there is not yet any confirmation of Canadian casualties, and officials in the U.S. say there are very few, if any, U.S. casualties. Donald Trump tweeting tonight, quote, "So far, so good." Nevertheless, the world is watching with great trepidation as the United States and Iran exchange high-powered military assaults. But check out this other battlefield where this conflict is being waged. This is what Donald Trump tweeted out after last week's deadly attack on Qasem Soleimani. Without a single word, the U.S. president signaled U.S. strength and determination. Well, tonight, this was the response from Saeed Jalili, an Iranian politician and former nuclear negotiator. Again, no words, just the flag. So you can watch continuing coverage of the Iranian missile strikes on CBC News Network. This is The National for Tuesday, January 7th.
Good night.